Joining us today is a true NFL legend, guiding the St. Louis Rams' greatest show on turf, winning 2 league MVPs and an MVP in the Super Bowl in 1999. He threw for 32,000 yards and guided 2 franchises to Super Bowls, as well as being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Kurt Warner, we are so excited to have you here on our channel. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, I really want to pick that elite quarterback mind of yours, as we've seen J.J. McCarthy come into his own here in his second year in the NFL. You've watched and analyzed a lot of his film. What did you see in his performance on Sunday in the win against the Commanders?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a combination of things, and so I broke down JJ a couple weeks ago, one of his performances, and I was talking a lot about in their system how that they asked the quarterbacks to start one place and then work through their progressions from there. And I felt like in that performance, he was slow getting from one to the next guy. Okay, so when that happens, obviously you can miss a lot of things. Things can break down in front of you, and some of those things can happen. So when we go to this past week's performance, I thought that process was sped up for him, and I think there was a couple reasons. First, when your number one receiver is open more often than they're not, makes the game a little bit easier, where it's more about pitch and catch and just getting back and throwing the football. And so a number of those things happened. So Coach KOC did a great job of designing some things to allow him to have some easier reads from that perspective. And then he made the throws. And then the times where he had to kind of process and see through it, I thought he did a much better job this time around at getting through those things a little bit faster. So he didn't have to speed up the throw part of it, because that's the other thing. When you're playing late as a quarterback and all of a sudden you see something and it's like, oh my gosh, I should have been there and I got to throw it. Now you speed up the process of throwing it. And I think that was part of some of his issues with accuracy early in the year. Was he was a little bit late on things. So he's trying to throw things a little bit harder. He's trying to speed up the process, and it's going to lead to more errant throws. So the more he can slow things down, obviously the more that coach can call plays that get his first guy open. But the more he can slow things down, be more comfortable with what he's seeing, and play the game at a slower pace when it comes time to throw it, the better he's going to be. And what you're always hoping for these young guys. And again, I know we talk about him as a second-year guy, but let's be honest, this is really his rookie year from standpoint of playing. You want to see the ascension. You want to see guys start the season somewhere and then make slow upticks along the way. And the unfortunate thing for JJ, and I keep saying it, is that this team won 14 games a year ago, and they've got a lot of talent on the team, and they chose to go with the young guy. And so everybody expected the same sort of results from this team because the team's the same. But, he's a second-year quarterback, and he hasn't played a lot of football, and he's trying to fit in and figure it out. And so I think our expectations for this team and for him were way too high from the get-go. And if we would just step back and go, okay, let's forget about the team and let's just look at a rookie quarterback and what we're expecting in start one and what we're expecting halfway through the season with a guy that's been injured a couple times, you want to just see the progress being made. And if last week is any indication, there's definitely been some progress to where he was earlier in the year.
When you think of how he made that progress in Sunday's game, whether it was the different types of plays that were called, the schemes that set him up well, where do you go next in order for him to build and grow and off of that performance?
Again, there's always, two sides to the story. There's the one side as a coach of going, okay, this is what this defense does that we're playing against. This is how we're going to attack them. These are the things that we like. These are the plays that we're going to put in. And then there's the other side of it going, but where is JJ? What is he comfortable with? What are things that he does well that we can also have success against this defense with, so we're not constantly throwing new things at him where he can't play his best? And so that's the challenge, every week with great offensive minds like, KOC that sees it and wants to create it and wants to create the perfect play to get the big play because he's so good at that. And then realizing what you have as a young quarterback. You don't have a Sam Darnold that's been in the league for a long time, or a Kirk Cousins that's been in the league for a long time and has seen and run a lot of different things. you got a young guy that you're trying to bring along. So you need to try to keep him as much in his comfort zone as you can while still attacking the defense and having success with it. And so it's always, a challenge. It's always a juggling act for these really good coaches to be able to do that. And because a lot of times they got to settle for like, okay, we can't do everything I want to do, and then you come out of a game and you didn't have as much success and you're like, I wish I, would have done this, or I wish I could have done that. While at the same time going, but the bigger picture is we've got to get this young man ready to win us championships at some point, and we have to realize that's not this year. Like, we can't expect that from him this year, and you've got to, fight those two balances of winning and playing your best football while also bringing along a young quarterback.
Right. I mean, there is a very, very, very small percentage that the Vikings will make the playoffs. The NFC is just so good this year. And when you think of these final games of the year, what do you want to see, or what would you want Vikings fans to hope to see from JJ to see that the future for next season is a good one, is a positive one?
Yeah, I think you want to continue to see steady growth. And that's the biggest thing, is that you want to try to use these last 4 games to build into next year. And that doesn't mean you're giving up on this year and you're not saying, hey, let's try to win them all and see if we can get in the playoffs. But the idea is simply, let's keep getting better. Let's keep building. Let's go into the offseason with everybody feeling really good about where we're at. Or in this specific case, let's get everybody feeling really good about the quarterback that's in our room. And what he can be for us. That's the fan base. That's the team in general. That's the coaches. That's the quarterback. Like, we want him going into the offseason feeling really good that we're putting him in position to play his best football and to help us win. And so that, to me, is kind of the underlying thing that you're trying to accomplish in these last 4 games, is play good football. Be competitive. I mean, coming off the game this past weekend, huge uptick. JJ plays great. You get a huge win. You start to see, okay, maybe we're not that far off. You don't blow people out in the NFL unless you're playing good football. You don't fall into those games very often. So it's a great start for them, down the stretch here, even if they don't make the playoffs. But that, to me, is what you're looking to do. You're looking to walk off the field after week 17 going, okay, I like where we're at going into the offseason and into next season. This is something that we can build off of.
When the Vikings do face a tough challenge, though, this week, when they face an experienced quarterback in Dallas, Dak Prescott is having a great year. He's got some of the most skilled players on the roster as long as CeeDee Lamb is able to play. You've also got George Pickens, Jake Ferguson with that incredible catch the other night. When you are Brian Flores and you're dialing up what you want to do against that Dallas offense, what are you thinking you can take advantage of just to slow them down on Sunday?
Well, Coach Flores does a great job of keeping you off balance, especially in third down situations. And so I know, his goal is going to be to win first and second down. That's where they're so good defensively. And, Dallas, where they've been their most successful is when they win early downs, because they've been able to run the football and do some of those things. So I think it starts right there is, coming up with a plan to slow them down early so you can use that blitz package to create some negative plays and force Dak to have to think and maybe make some mistakes. And then I think the other area, while you're trying to balance all of that out, is just not giving up the big plays. Dallas's offense is built on the big pass plays, pushing the ball down the field. George Pickens, stretching the field with him, CeeDee Lamb, the chunk plays, working the middle of the field. But that's what they do so well. And for any offense, even the best offenses in the league, when you can take away the big plays and force them to make 10 and 12 play drives, against a really good defense that can create havoc, that's when you win these type of football games. So going into this game, that's, to me, what it's all about. Don't give up the big plays, the easy chunk plays, and then force Dallas, into some third and longer situations where, that blitz package of Minnesota can really create havoc and create some negative plays and hopefully give the ball back to their offense and J.J. McCarthy a few more times.
Yeah, maybe they would bring up another 19-play, 98-yard, 12-minute drive. Who knows?
Yep.
Yep. One last thing before I go, Kurt, because our engineer Cole and I were talking about what to ask you a little bit before this, and so I wanted to I can't take credit for this, but when you think of Brian Flores's defense and so many exotic defenses that we see that make so many different checks and movements at the line. How much of that were
Yep.
you seeing then, and how has that really evolved since you've played the game?
Yeah, I mean, we would see some, but maybe not to the extent that you see it now. You see a lot more of this. Everybody walks up. It's what we would call a blitz zero look. So for those listening at home that may not know, the blitz zero look is obviously straight man across the board. Everybody else is up at the line of scrimmage and, looking as if they're going to bring all those defenders, which usually means we can't block them all. And so there's going to be an extra defender somewhere, and we got to get the ball out of our hands quickly and make a play. But now you're seeing a lot of teams, and obviously you see it on a weekly basis, is Coach Flores does a great job of giving you those looks and then running out of those looks to a variety of different zone coverages. He'll bring some guys, he'll drop some guys, but they have the ability to get back to a lot of their different coverages from that. And that's the thing I don't think we saw as much when I was playing. We would see, the walk-up players with the guys in the A-gaps and people popping out and some of that, but not to the extent where you have so many guys at the line of scrimmage and then the ability for anybody to drop out, right? You're going to see on a weekly basis, defensive tackles pop out, defensive ends pop out. When I was playing, those guys weren't quite as athletic as they are now. So most of the guys popping out were the linebackers or the safeties, not those big defensive linemen. But now those guys are so versatile that you can blitz anybody and you can drop anybody and still have a good chance to be successful in your zone coverage. So that to me is where it's gotten more complex, and specifically on third down, and why it's so key for teams to stay out of those third and long situations where you've got to hold the football and throw it down the field, because they create some easy opportunities in the pass rush and free rushers on the quarterback that make it really, really hard.
Okay, not to really put you on the spot, because I told you we weren't going to even talk about this, but have you seen any of that reflected in college? Does that make the quarterback transition even more difficult because it's something you've never seen?
Yeah, I don't think you're seeing it to the degree that you see it at the NFL level. There's just not the time and the sophistication to it at the college level. You might see aspects of it that are going to be much easier, much more defined, where Ryan Flores might have 10 different calls from that look. A college team may have 2 or 3. Okay. And so now okay, I'm either getting this or I'm getting that. And so, you make that transition to the NFL. It's very difficult. And then the next piece to it is that I don't think even NFL offenses do a great job of creating easy, hot opportunities, right? Quick throws against pressure for their quarterback. So now you're getting all these looks, and you want to try to solve those looks with protections and backs and protection. It's not going to happen. So it leads to so many negative plays every week because they don't have the proper answers, or because they're not ready to handle it and come up with the proper answers in those type of situations. And so I do believe it's more sophisticated, but when guys aren't ready for it and they come to this level, it's a tough thing to be able to decipher and get the ball out and continually make positive plays against looks like that.
All right. Well, Kurt, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate the insight. And of course, you can watch him on NFL Game Day mornings starting at 8 a.m. Central Time on the NFL Network. Check that out Sunday before the Vikings play later that night. Get your football all day. Thank you so much, Kurt.
You got it. Thanks for having me.